So one thing I can recommend is trying to do all of your bike trial challenges during the day. For me, I had to do this so many times that the time switched over to nighttime, and I ended up doing a lot of my challenges with night vision, which is fine, but sometimes the exposure from the flares and lights that are on the course kind of distort the view of the track. You see these tires here, those actually help you stop. So on some courses you'll need to crash into those tires to get a good hit, and then you'll stay on the course. And for example, you just kind of gotta just ease into it and know when to stop. Now I had done this course so many times that I wanted to make absolutely sure that I didn't just fall off here, so I took my time to line up. And as you'll see, I'll make it here in just a moment. So once again, it's easier to do these courses in the daytime. I would take my drone and actually fly over the course to see where all the jumps, tricks, and what kind of distance there needs to be. Sometimes I would miss something and I would fall off the course. And let me tell you, I nearly broke my controller. I got so frustrated a few times. But I did realize that if I just kept practicing and got good at it, I could get it down easily. Now, I've seen some other videos where guys have done this really quickly, and I don't know how they do it. Maybe they're better players than me, but the easiest way for me was to just be like a turtle and just literally line the bike up as if you're, pretend there's lava on the ground and try not to fall into it. It's kind of like that old school Mario Brothers mentality. You learn the patterns and maps, and then you make the jumps and you succeed. So that was my strategy on this stuff. Also, I celebrated by blowing up the bike because I was so frustrated it felt good to blow up the bike. One thing I can say is that you can actually use any motorcycle on these challenges. The biggest bike, which is the biker gang style, the big chopper style bike, is not ideal for these courses because they're so big and you could actually just fall off if you just land in the wrong spot. And the smaller bike is very similar to the dirt bike in physics, but after a while I just practiced so much with the dirt bike that it made the most sense. You also have to once again make sure that you reset those challenges. If you happen to fail, then you have to back away from the beginning of the challenge so that the game will refresh and it'll give you a start. I may have mentioned this already, but there is a point where I was doing a few of these challenges and I didn't realize the timer wasn't going, and I was so focused on finishing the challenge that I didn't realize that the timer wasn't even going, so I finished a couple times and did get credit for it. This particular one you have to coast down and be careful. There's that guy walking down there. You could fall if you're not careful. And again, just take your time, make it slow, easy, and you'll get it. It's just a question of if it's worth it to you to do it. I don't really personally like the Narco Road DLC too much. I do like the, monster trucks and things like that. And I did like, being able to be kind of undercover, but other than that, it was kind of a lazy DLC in my opinion. So here we have another course that took me so many tries that I actually had to do it at night. So unfortunately I'm doing this during nighttime, but if you see that smashed light there on the left, I shot out the lights when I failed a few times because I just felt like I couldn't see anything because the night vision was getting overexposed by the light. What's tricky about this is you have to jump and then try not to overshoot it or you'll go right in the water. That's why those tires are there, so you can bounce right into it and just kind of plant. It's almost like you're kind of like Spider-Man. You have to stick wherever you land. This is a terribly designed course in my opinion. I had a few attempts where I would just roll right past here and forget to turn, and then I'd back up and fall into the water or fall off the edge. There's usually a sign right there, but I use C4 to blow it up because I wanted to make sure that I could see exactly what I'm doing. I would look for the tires instead of the sign. When you get up here, you just got to be real careful and just take your time and then land. Like right here, I would fall in the water several times. I'd bounce backwards into the water, and that is really frustrating. What's really frustrating also about that particular one is if you fall in the water, you can't swim in certain areas. So you have to swim like in a specific area to get out. But once you get it lined up, just take your time. Don't worry about the timer. I remember a lot of times I'd be looking at the time. I was like, I don't want to have a good time. I just want to finish this. So that's where I was at. And eventually that's where I got. And it takes time, but you can do it. Once again, I celebrated by destroying the bike. I think this is the particular trial I had a lot of trouble with, because sometimes you'd bounce right backwards and you'd fall out of the course even though you're just, the physics of the tire is a little goofy, so you have to be careful. Sometimes I'd bounce right outside of the track and it was extremely frustrating. But again, it was getting dark, so I went ahead and turned on the night vision so I could see exactly what I was doing. And I don't know why it didn't count me off here, but I didn't see the timer stop, so I went ahead and kept going. So I was happy about that. That's one other thing I can mention is sometimes, there was a couple times where I actually went through a course and I was so focused on finishing the course that I didn't realize that the trial had not reset. So there was twice where I actually finished the course, but the timer wasn't going because it had not reset yet, and I was so angry. But what you have to do is, if you fail the course, make sure you walk away from the beginning of the trial, and you'll see it pop back up on your map. If you don't see it on your map, then it's not going to work. So make sure that you look, and if you get on the bike and it says time trial, then you're pretty good. You should be okay. But there was twice where I actually was so focused on finishing that I went through the course perfectly and there was no timer, so the game didn't count it. So make sure that works for you. Sometimes you'll see me just pause for a moment after I make a landing because I was breaking everything up into sections. And that's a really good way to kind of break up the course. If you can just think of it as like, okay, this is an obstacle course. There's a couple times I even set the controller down just to catch my breath and make sure that I was not, in a rush. Now this particular trial was the one where I actually experimented with other motorcycles, and I realized that the dirt bike is the best one for it. I had been driving it so much that it just felt natural to me to kind of control it. This jump is kind of tricky. You have to make sure you hit those tires and try not to hit them too hard or you'll bounce right off. In fact, I thought I was in trouble here, but I finally just wiggled it around and got over that tire. And I was like, okay, good. You also have to be careful here because if you don't go fast enough, you'll just roll backwards right off the roof. So that's very frustrating. This particular jump right here is terrible. You have to practice a few times, but make sure you land it and then immediately hold your brake if you can. Don't back up, but just hold your brake. Now you're going to see me, it's going to take me about, I think, 20 seconds just to get lined up because I fell off this so many times because I didn't have enough momentum and I was so angry, or I would just veer off the edge. There was a couple times where I would land it, but sometimes the timer would still quit for some reason. I don't know if it's a collision thing or what. But whoever designed these courses is a glutton for punishment. It's almost like the Dark Souls of motorcycles, I guess. Another celebration here, blowing up the bike. So sometimes I would I would fast travel to other towns to try and get the timer to be like daytime during the courses, but sometimes that would backfire on me. I would fast travel and then I would end up at night. So this one, it was I fast travel, but it was just starting to get light. So I figured, okay, if I fail, it'll continue to get brighter and brighter, and I'll be able to see better. But I actually was fortunate enough to get it on this time. Now this particular jump right here is tricky because you bounce and then you bounce again, and you run right into those bags there. Those bags are very helpful. Make sure that you try and aim for those if you can. That's why I use the drone to scout out the locations first, just to make sure that I'm going to know where the bike can hit and I probably won't fall off. You have to be careful here as well because it's at an angle, and if you go too fast you'll just slide right off. And this jump right here, I was doing this particular course one time with night vision on. It was nighttime and I did not see that jump and I just barely made it, but then I screwed up at the very end and had to start over. So I think this was like probably the 18th or 19th time I was trying this. I'm not gonna lie, it was not easy to get all these done, but once I got it done I was very happy because I was like, I'm never going to do these bike trials again. And that's about it for the trials. Everything else is just really simple. You just have to do the very simple jumps, drifts, and everything, and the impossible climbs up the mountains and things like that. One thing I will say about the drift is if you can get a hold of the Lamborghini, if you can start off in a base that has that, try and do all of your trials that require the drift with the Lamborghini. You can almost drift without even trying. That's probably the easiest way to do it.